Deep in the woods lived a little rabbit named Rollo. He had soft white fur and a tiny twitchy nose. Rollo's home was a cozy burrow under the roots of a big oak tree. The woods were full of exciting things. Rollo loved to explore. Every day was a new adventure. He hopped through the ferns and chased butterflies. Rollo rarely listened to his mother's warnings. One sunny morning, Rollo decided to visit the river. It flowed at the edge of the woods. His mother had warned him about the river. "Rollo dear, never go too close to the water," she would say. But Rollo, with his curious nature, often forgot his mother's words. He was eager to see the river for himself. The thought of adventure filled his heart with joy. Rollo hopped along, his white tail bobbing with excitement. He had often heard the river's rushing sound. It seemed like a beautiful song from afar. He imagined the river as a sparkling ribbon. Rollo dreamed of finding delicious berries growing by the water. He thought of all the colorful pebbles he might find. Rollo was too distracted by the thought of these treasures. He forgot all about his mother's warnings. The river was even prettier than Rollo had imagined. The water sparkled and danced in the sunlight. Smooth, colorful pebbles lined the bank. Rollo hopped closer. He wanted a better look at the rushing water. The sound was louder now. He could even feel tiny sprays of water on his face. It felt cool and refreshing. Rollo saw a particularly shiny pebble near the water's edge. He hopped onto a large moss-covered rock. From there, he could almost reach the pebble. He stretched out his little paw to grab it. Suddenly, the rock beneath him wobbled. Rollo lost his balance. He tumbled head over heels into the river with a splash. The water was cold and swift. It pulled Rollo downstream. He tried to swim, but the current was too strong. "Help! Help!" cried Rollo, but his voice was drowned out by the rushing water. He struggled to keep his head above the surface. Fear filled his little heart. He wished he had listened to his mother. A small twig floated nearby. Rollo tried to grab it. He hoped it would help him stay afloat, but the current snatched the twig away. Rollo felt himself being pulled further and further away from the bank. He was losing hope. "Someone, please help me." Suddenly, Rollo felt something bump against his back. It was a large, green shell. He looked up and saw a pair of wise old eyes. It was Timmy the turtle, the oldest and wisest creature in the woods. Timmy had seen Rollo fall in and quickly swam over to help. "Hold on tight, little one," boomed Timmy in his deep, slow voice. Rollo clung to Timmy's shell with all his might. He was so relieved he could have cried. Timmy, with slow and steady strokes, began to swim towards the riverbank. The current tried to pull them back, but Timmy was strong. He had lived in the river for many years. "You're lucky I was here, Rollo," said Timmy, his voice stern but kind. "This river can be dangerous, especially for little rabbits who don't listen to their mothers." Rollo felt ashamed. He knew Timmy was right. "You could have been swept away," Timmy continued. "Always remember, the river is beautiful, but it demands respect." Finally, Timmy reached the riverbank and gently nudged Rollo onto the soft grass. Rollo lay there for a moment, catching his breath. He was wet, cold, and very scared, but he was also grateful. He looked up at Timmy with wide, thankful eyes. "Thank you, Timmy," he whispered. "You saved my life." "It's all right, Rollo," said Timmy. "Just promise me you'll be more careful from now on. Listen to your mother. She only wants what's best for you." Rollo nodded solemnly. He had learned his lesson the hard way. "Now off you go," said Timmy. "Go home and dry off, and no more playing by the river without a grown-up rabbit to watch over you." Rollo scurried back home as fast as his little legs could carry him. He was so happy to be safe. He burst through the burrow door, shivering and dripping wet. His mother rushed over, her eyes wide with worry. "Rollo, what happened? You're soaked!" she exclaimed. Rollo threw his little paws around his mother's neck. "Mother, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice muffled by her fur. "I didn't listen to you. I went to the river and I fell in." He recounted the whole story, his voice trembling as he described his fear and how Timmy the turtle had saved him. His mother listened patiently, stroking his wet fur. When he finished, she said, "Oh, Rollo, I'm so glad you're safe. Timmy is a wise old turtle. He has helped many creatures in the woods." She looked at him seriously. "But remember what I told you about the river? It's beautiful, but it can be dangerous." "I know, Mother," said Rollo, hanging his head. "I should have listened to you. From now on, I promise to always pay attention to your advice." He snuggled closer to his mother, feeling warm and safe in her embrace. He had learned a valuable lesson that day. From that day on, Rollo was a changed rabbit. He was still curious and loved exploring. However, he was much more cautious. He always remembered what his mother told him and always listened to the advice of those older and wiser than him. He knew they only wanted to keep him safe. And though he still enjoyed visiting the river, he never went too close to the edge again, and he certainly never went alone. He carried with him the memory of his adventure, a reminder of the importance of listening to wise advice and respecting the power of nature. The end.